Hello and welcome to Vegan Food and Living. I'm Zacchary Bird and I'm going to be taking you along for a bit of a cooking adventure today. If you haven't met me before, I am a plant-based meat developer and vegan cookbook writer based out of Melbourne, Australia, where it is currently 5 a.m. But I'm joining you live in the UK for an 8 p.m. Friday night fry-up, where tonight we're going to be cooking one of my favorite new recipes from my favorite new book because I wrote it. It's called Vegan Junk Food, and it comes out in about a month worldwide. So from September 1st, you can purchase it all over the world. And I'm going to be making vegan fish. So beer battered fish made out of banana blossom. So if you've not had a banana blossom, I'm going to be talking you through how to make it, how to use it, how to eat it today. But just quickly, this is what we're cooking out of. This is vegan junk food. And the recipe that we're working on is my fish. So let me just pull it up. There will be no real fish used today because I am a vegan and this is Vegan Food and Living, and we're going to keep it 100% plant-based but super, super delicious. So there's so many delicious recipes. Let me just take a second. This is what we're going to be making. This is beer battered banana blossom, and this is tartar sauce. I'm also going to show you how to make tartar sauce. So this is the recipe. That's the book. This is me, and if you've got any questions along the way, just drop them in the comments and I will be sure to address them for you. So let's get started. So the base for our faux fish today is banana blossom. So you'll find it in your local Asian supermarket. I've purchased this brand. It really is just this very interesting little fruit that looks like this, and in my opinion that looks pretty gross, which is what makes it so perfect to be a fish substitute, because this, once it's been marinated and fried, does give that texture and look of fish and takes on all the flavors that we're going to add in, so we can make it taste oceany if we want. So you're going to want to look for banana blossom, and today we're going to be using 2 cans. So we're just going to drain out all the brine and get this rinsed before we start off. Thanks for joining me in my second part of my set. I am just going to dump out these 2 cans of banana blossom. And it's really important to try and get all of the brine out, because that is going to kind of ruin the flavor that we're trying to achieve a bit later. It might taste a little bit like fried artichokes if you don't do this step. And deep fried artichokes are delicious, but they're not the recipe that we're making today. So normally I would just have this under running water, but today I'm just going to give it a splash of water, and I'm wanting to just rinse out all of that brine and really give it a hearty squeeze. So I've got a little bowl to put to the side, and as each of these banana blossoms are properly rinsed, I'm just going to get them into that bowl. Let's see if I can make this something that you can see. So here are my banana blossoms, and it's really just as easy as squeezing all of that brine out and making sure there's lots of room for the marinade that we want to head on in. So squeeze that out really thoroughly. I hope you guys can see that. That's what it looks like. And it will look a little closer to fish and less like the blossom of a banana by the time that we're done. There's lots of really interesting fruits and vegetables that people are using for fake meat these days, like jackfruit and palm hearts and these banana blossom. And I'd say if you've never given them a go, banana blossom is one of the easiest ones to work with because it doesn't take a lot of prep other than this rinsing process before it is largely ready to go. So if you can hunt down a can of this in your local Asian supermarket, it's a great one to crack into because we're just adding a little bit of a marinade and that's it. So it's quite a foolproof recipe. If you'd like to try something really new to trick and confuse all of your vegan friends and your non-vegan friends. It's a little bit messy. You can see all of that liquid's coming out really easily, and we actually have a lot less banana blossom than you might imagine when you crack open the tin. So I mentioned earlier that it's 5 a.m. where I am. That's because I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. But we're actually on our second lockdown right now, and I'm not allowed to leave my house. So the days are blurring into each other, and there's nowhere I'd rather be right now at 5 a.m. Australian time than deep frying with you here on Vegan Food and Living's live Instagram feed. All right, my banana blossoms are ready. Let's take a quick look-see. Here's what we look like. You can see a lot of that liquid's gone, and it ends up looking really a little bit stringy, but with lots of inconsistent texture, and that's what makes it such a great fish substitute. So that's ready to go, and what I like to do is just spread it out so that I haven't squeezed it into clumps, which is going to stop the marinade from seeping in. And what's next is the marinade. So to separate all of your banana blossom pieces, and this one's really loose, you can change it up as you like. I teach this in my class and people kind of vary it up each time, but I'm just going to get a tablespoon measure up. So to add the flavour in here, I've got a couple of things prepared. I've got some grated ginger and some garlic, and that's just really obvious flavours that go into everything, honestly. But the ginger's there to make everything taste really fresh, and the garlic is there to add a bit of extra flavour, because garlic goes really well with a lot of traditional seafood flavours and helps us start to build the flavour profile that we're looking for today. I've also got a lot of spring onion, green onion, where you are from, you might be calling it whatever you call it. This is, again, a great way to make everything taste really fresh. I'm going to pop in two stems of green onion, about 2 centimeters of ginger, and about 2 cloves of garlic for my 2 cans of banana blossom. I also always need to put in seaweed, so that's our most obvious, easiest way to add fish flavor here. So if you don't have shredded seaweed somewhere near you, you can just use the same seaweed you find at your local supermarket that you can make sushi with. And all you have to do is just chop that up into little pieces so you've got something that looks a little bit like a powder. And that's a great way to add a bit of fishy flavour. So I'm going to put 2 teaspoons in there as well. You might like to leave all of your marinade ingredients quite chunky, because that means they won't end up in the final product and just the flavour will. Or if you're cooking for yourself like I am right now, I make them really fine and mix them through, because I don't mind the visual inconsistency. But if you are making this to really impress people, I like to leave these ingredients quite large so that I can pick them out of the final product and it does look like a piece of fried fish. So in here I've got my spring onion, I've got my garlic, I've got my ginger, and I've got my seaweed. And the only other thing we need is a bit of white wine. Now, if you've not looked into vegan wine before, quite a few of them, or quite a few wines aren't vegan friendly, and that's because of the clarification process. And so they normally use something like milk, egg, or isinglass, which is made from a fish bladder, to process the wines at the end of the production. So keep your eye out for vegan friendly wine. Quite a lot of them aren't, and it's really quite easy these days to find out which wines are vegan. Just check out Barnivore. It's a really great international resource that'll let you know what's available near you. So I've got about 1/3 of a cup of white dry wine that goes over the top, and I don't normally put this in, but every single person that I've taught this to in a class has always wanted to add a sneaky dash of chili. So I've got a bit of Tabasco to go in, but the secret is you actually don't want to make this marinade too flavor set, because if you bite into a piece of fried fish, traditionally it's not jam-packed full of flavor in there. We have tartar sauce, we've got mushy peas, the flavor comes from elsewhere, but the actual fish is quite subtle. So we don't want to make this too aggressive, which is why we then add a whole lot of water just until it covers the banana blossoms. And by whole lot of water, I need some more. If you are just joining us on the Vegan Food and Living Instagram, I'm Zacchary Bird. You can find me on Instagram Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all that jazz, and I'm a vegan chef from Melbourne, Australia, and today I'm cooking out of my brand new cookbook, which is only 1 month away worldwide, and that's called Vegan Junk Food. But today we're making beer battered banana blossoms, and I have just added the last of my marinade ingredients, and I just need to give this a hearty stir through. So normally I would leave this to sit for at least 2 hours, but anywhere up to 24 hours, so you can really just put this together, and when your friends come over, if your friends are allowed over wherever you are in the world, I love to have this ready the day before, and then when everyone's here, I can just batter and fry them and have fresh vegan fish with not too much effort when I'm actually ready to cook. Not that this is taking too much effort. So I'm just going to mix that all through so that every part of the marinade has a chance to seep in. And then just use your fingertips to try and push as much of the actual banana blossom under the water. And that's just going to make sure all of them drink in this flavor. So when you're done, you should be looking at something like that, and that can just sit covered in your fridge for a day. If you've got a day to spare. Right now, I've only got a few minutes because I'm really excited to fry this up for you. So we're going to leave this sit for as long as it takes to work on the rest of the recipe. Do a quick set change, it won't be long. Alright, so today we are going to be deep frying, and that means that I've got a pot of oil that I've just put over the heat. And when you're deep frying at home, it is actually possible to do it without all of the fancy equipment. You just need a really heavy bottomed pot, and you need to fill it up no more than halfway full of vegetable oil or canola oil or another oil that's great for frying. If you grab a copy of my book, I have a lot of tips on how to deep fry at home. But you are able to do it. There's lots of different ways to test for temperature if you don't have an official temperature gauge, checker, thermometer. Thermometer is the word. If you don't have an actual deep frying thermometer, then there are lots of ways to check if your oil's hot enough to deep fry. But I am going to show you that a little bit later. So just letting you know, if you are cooking along at home for whatever reason, pop your oil on heat and then make sure to keep your eye on it here and there so that we don't have a kitchen emergency. So popping that on, and then we're going to be making tartar sauce. Really quick, really easy, 100% vegan of course, and that's the perfect pairing for what we're going to be frying up in a minute. Okay, again referring to vegan junk food, they're the best vegan mayonnaise recipe that you will ever need in your life in there. So if you've never made vegan mayo before, it takes 2 whole minutes. It's really delicious and easy, and it's a lot cheaper to make yourself at home. So you can grab that recipe in this book if you want to get involved in that. But if you don't have that, thank God there's a lot of great vegan mayonnaise options at the local supermarket these days. So I have 1/4 cup of mayonnaise left because again, I'm in lockdown, I'm not allowed to go anywhere, and this is how much we have to work with. But I do have a can-do attitude. So to make a homemade tartar sauce, all you need is vegan mayonnaise. We're starting with 1/4 cup today. You need dill pickles, and you want to chop them really finely, and you just dump that in, and guess what? You've actually technically just made like a really, let's call it rustic tartar sauce. This is the basis of all tartar. It's just pickles and mayo. So I'm going to use a spoon to mix that through and then show you the other ingredients that come together to round out the flavor profile. I do have an exact tartar sauce recipe in my book, but when I teach this, I often like to teach people how to taste and go. So tartar sauce, once you've got the pickles and mayo, it's really quite forgiving, and you can get away with quite a lot. So in here, you want to make sure you have a little dash of caper brine. I'm doing 1/4 of my normal recipe, so I'm hoping that that is 1/4 of a teaspoon or else. This is going to be potent. I'm going to put a little squirt of mustard, which goes into the mayonnaise in the first place anyway. We're going to definitely want some lemon, so let me chop that one up. Definitely want a little bit of lemon. What else have I got here? Nice squeeze of lemon for that tanginess, and you definitely want to have some lemon kept to the side to serve with the vegan fish, because that's going to complete the dish. You're not going to serve any form of fish without lemon, so keep some on the side if you have it. And the last ingredient to go into our tartar sauce is some fresh dill. And this is my favorite herb on the entire planet, which you don't hear often, do you? So I thought I'd represent the dill and just pick off a couple of lovely looking sprigs, and we're going to finely chop that in, and we've literally just made homemade vegan tartar sauce. So if you're at home and you've got mayonnaise and dill pickles, you can make tartar sauce, and if you also have lemon juice, mustard, caper brine, and or fresh dill, you've got really good tartar sauce. So it's really not that daunting of a dish to make for yourself. That's a pretty good amount of dill. And I am just going to snip that finely into there. If anyone has any questions about deep frying, cooking, plant-based meat, or being a vegan chef, feel free to pop them in the comments and I will address them for sure. Alright, I'm usually very hardy with my dill allocation, so let's show you what we're working with. For all my ingredients, and we're just mixing that up. Oh, that's the stuff, that's it. So that's literally, that is vegan tartar sauce. It's ready to go, and this keeps in the fridge for a pretty reasonable amount of time. I've never gotten to the point where I've had it and it's gone off because I haven't eaten it in time. So that's always a bonus. So we've got our delicious tartar sauce ready to go. And there's literally just one more step before we're ready to fry. So it's a really easy recipe. Do bear with me, we're getting towards the end already. Alright, I've got one more super easy cooking secret to share with you, and that's how to make beer batter at home. It's actually 2 ingredients, super easy, and you'll never forget it once I tell you. So, listen up. I'm headed to my freezer because I'm getting my self-raising flour and a can of beer out. Why are they in my freezer, you ask? It's because we want to get these as cold as we can before we move on to the next step. So this has been in my freezer for a little while. I am going to attempt to very neatly measure this out. Ooh, not that neat. So I've got a cup of self-raising flour. Here's the secret. Beer batter is 50% self-raising flour and 50% beer. That's it. That's all you need to know. So 1 cup of self-raising flour and 1 cup of beer is the ratio that you need to know to have beer batter ready whenever you want at home. Definitely want to season our flour, so a good crack of pepper in there. And I've got some smoked salt, literally just use whatever salt you've got obviously, but this one's quite fancy and lovely and I'd like to put that in today. Make sure that you season this, because you can't get it as salty and flavoursome as if you add this to the outside of the batter than if you just put it in the first place. So that's nicely seasoned. I'm just going to check on the status of my cooking oil, because the secret to beer batter is you do not want to make it ahead of time. You want to make beer batter moments before you pop it into the pan, because we're trying to capture all of these awesome bubbles in the beer, and if you make it ahead of time and leave it sit somewhere, the bubbles are going to go away and so will all chance of success. So make sure that this is ready to go straight away. If you are gluten-free, you can do this gluten-free. You just need gluten-free flour, a gluten-free baking soda to make it into self-raising flour, and instead of beer, you are welcome to use soda water because the bubbles are going to work the same way. It just won't have as much extra flavour. So before we move on, I'm just going to check out how my hot oil is going. Alright, it's well and truly on its way. So, my beer batter is just about ready to go, but before we do that, I want to make sure I'm not wasting time between having the batter ready and getting it to fry. So let's check back in on our marinating banana blossom. Oh, can you see the difference? You shouldn't be able to because it's just been about 4 minutes that's been marinating for, but you will get an idea of what we're doing. So all you do is grab a handful, and just like before, we're squeezing out that liquid. And in the process, that's going to form us a little fillet, and we're pretty much good to go. So leave a little bit of moisture in there so you're not having a dry, faux piece of fish. But squeezing it all together and out creates something like that. And this is going to be our faux fish inside of the beer batter. So in here is it's literally just the marinated banana blossom. And as I mentioned, you can leave the marinade ingredients out, or I like to leave them in for extra flavor and to reduce the waste. So I'm just going to get 2 of these ready for you. And banana blossom is wonderful because, facing away from the camera, what an unprofessional. This weirdness is going to be wonderful when you take a bite and tear it out, and it's got all that weird inconsistency. That's going to trick people into thinking that they're having real fish, which is great. I'm just seeing these comments. Someone is a troll, and the other people are really lovely, so it's good to have you here. I'm just going to make one more fillet by squeezing out that liquid as I mentioned. And we're done. That's it. This is really all it takes to make homemade fish for frying. And as I mentioned earlier, that looks pretty gross, which looks just like real fish in my opinion, so that's wonderful. So if you have a deep fry thermometer, you should be checking on your oil and trying to make sure it hits at least 175 degrees Celsius, no more than 195 degrees Celsius. So that's why it's really great to have a deep fry thermometer with you, because it's such a specific window that you need to have your oil at for it to properly fry. If you don't have that, there are alternatives. Give it a quick Google. You can use a piece of bread, and there's a guide as to how long it takes to brown, and it'll let you know what temperature your oil's at. I don't love that because you've got to wait for the bread to fry, and by that time the oil might be at a completely different temperature yet again. I like to call this the granny way, just putting in the like a wooden skewer or a wooden spoon, and to see if the bubbles start bubbling immediately and vigorously, then you know that your oil is at the right temperature. So that's a couple of different ways. I've got an oil thermometer, so I'm just going to check at what temperature we're at before we move on. We're at a pretty good temperature, so let's get moving. Are you excited? Because I'm bloody excited. I'm measuring out my 1 cup, and again, it's 50-50. So if you've got 3/4 of a cup of beer, 3/4 of a cup of self-raising flour is what you need. But I love this one because we're not 5:30 a.m. where I currently am. You've always got a little bit of beer left over, and that's yours to do with what you will. And I love having half of a beer left in the middle of cooking. So if you're like me, you're going to love this recipe as well. So we've got really cold beer, we've got really cold self-raising flour, and we just want to gradually add it in. Just a little bit. I think I can come around to show you. There you go, I can come around to show you. So I'm just going to gradually add this in. Now when making batters with flour and whatnot, there's lots of little variations that can change the recipe, like the temperature of the room that you're in, what sort of flour you're using, can all change the absorbability of the actual flour. So do not use a recipe guide as Bible. Have a look at the consistency of the batter that you're trying to recreate, and make sure that you're getting close to that, because if you follow a recipe gung-ho every time, it's probably not going to work out for you. So that's about a cup of flour. We'll see how my ratios are going today by just mixing this all together. A couple of lumps are absolutely fine, but you do want a consistent batter. I'm using a fork. You can use a whisk. All right, that's stunning. You can see, oh, it's quite lumpy. That's, as I said, fine, but we'll get a couple of those lumps out. You just don't want to mix it too much, because we're going to start breaking all the bubbles that we've just put in here, and we also may start forming the gluten. And gluten leads to chewiness, and we don't want chewiness, we want crunchiness for a batter, which is why things like tempura and beer batter are really focused on being as cold as possible and lowering the gluten formation, because we want that crunch on the outside, and any formed gluten is going to be the ones to stop that from happening. Okay, that's absolutely stunning. I have my batter, I have my tartar sauce, and I have my fish pieces. You're going to go on a journey with me to the other part of my kitchen. We're going to leave this set. We're going to come along here. Welcome to my kitchen. The lighting is not as good in here, but it's where the frying happens. So, also this is my chef wall, my toolkit. You might be able to tell that I love frying. I really love to fry things, and I love having a assortment of different equipment to fry to the best of my ability. So I hope you can see me well there. My temperature is just below 170 degrees. That's exactly where I want it to be. You must have paper towels. Now, paper towels aren't really optional when it comes to deep frying. I'll tell you why. It's because most of the oil that actually enters the food or the product that you're frying enters after you finish frying. So once it's in the oil, less than 50% of the time is when the oil's actually touching the outside of the food, and all the bubbles that you're seeing is the water vaporizing and pushing the oil away. So it's actually not even touching your food most of the time. When you take it out of the oil and the temperature comes down, that oil is able to then seep into the food. So by putting it onto a paper towel or blotting it, that's our best way of reducing the amount of oil that actually ends up in our food. So definitely have a paper towel ready to go. And you want something like this that's rounded. Don't use tongs when you're deep frying, because we're trying to create a batter and a seal to keep the ingredients encased in something, and then the oil on the outside. And we want to keep that seal to keep the oil outside and the ingredients inside. So if you use tongs, you might accidentally puncture the seal, and that's going to work against us. So that's why you hear rounded, slotted spoons and the like for deep frying, because this is our best shot at not puncturing the outside of our batter. So this is my utensil. I've got my paper towel, and the temperature is just at 175. So I'm going to go grab the fish that we made earlier, and the batter, and we're good to go. The party is ready to start. This is when it gets a bit messy, so bear with me, because I've got a pot of hot oil and a live camera feed, and boy, if we just don't have all of the ingredients for a catastrophe. So if you are watching at the moment, you may be watching something very dramatic when I set something on fire, or you might just be learning a great recipe. Either way, do not go anywhere. So we grab our little fillet, and by little I made this one quite large, so there's the generosity. And just make sure nothing's going to fall off and ruin our batter. And this is hands-on, so the batter's fairly thick at the moment. It's thickening up. It's beautiful and fluffy, so you just want to make sure that you coat the whole thing generously. in the batter. If there are parts of the outside that are exposed, that is going to ruin everything later. And we just want to make sure a lot of that batter drips off, and we're just going to lower that straight into the oil. Beautiful. All right, so that these cook at the same time, I'm going to get this one straight in. So I'm just putting it in with a fork and trying to preserve the sanctity of the fillet that I made. You will want to use your hands if possible. And remember, the oil is actually the safety zone for your ingredient. And by that I mean, once it hits the oil, it's going to create a seal and a barrier. And that means that the oil won't get inside. So the second that we can get it into the oil, it's going to stop trying to fall apart. So let's see if I can prove that to be correct with this one. Just making sure there's batter everywhere. Not a tricky. Actually, let's do them one at a time so I can show you. So this one, I'm just going to make sure now that there's a little bit of oil touching all sides. So to do that, we just want to make sure we flip it over. Beautiful. I'm just going to get this out of the road. I'll be back momentarily. So this will fry for 3 or 4 minutes, or until it's nice and golden brown. So this is nowhere near nice and golden brown, so we're going to keep that in there. And I'm just going to prepare my second fillet. If your batter is getting too thick, just add more beer and give it a good whisk through, and you will be set. Alright, second piece, ready to go. There we go. Beautiful work, Zach. Oh, well, thank you very much. Get that tray out of your sight. So this is what the fish starts to look like. I should stop saying fish. This is what the banana blossom starts to look like. Let me just show you there. That's really beautiful. It's got a great little crust, and I'm just going to make sure that this is getting some hot oil all around. So what you can do is use a little spoon if something's sitting out of the oil, and just wash some of the the hot oil over the top, and that's going to help create that crust while you wait for the oil to touch every part of it. Alrighty, that's starting to get a little more golden, as you can see, but I'm not quite happy with it yet, so let me continue on this journey. And what's wonderful about beer batter is you can just let some plop on in after your hand, and it has that beautiful irregular outside. That's great, because a lot of vegan fish is produced in a factory line, and it comes in a perfect triangle or a perfect shape, and it looks nothing like real fish, which is irregular, and it's different, and you get big pieces, you get weird pieces. So that's what I really love about this, is it does have that homemade inconsistency that I think it's more exciting, and I think it's a nicer dish to present to someone. So I'm going to take that out. This is what my beer battered banana blossoms look like at the end, nice and crispy. That's stunning. And if you do want to add salt, now's the time, right after they come out of the oil, because it's going to help attach to the outside. So I'm going to not miss this opportunity, and I'm just going to crack a little bit of salt over the top. So as you can see, this is my paper towel. See all this oil that's coming straight off? That has all been saved from entering here, and is now somewhere in a paper towel. So it is really important to try and have a paper towel, or at least somewhere for the oil to drain. But really, the absorbentness of the paper towel is what makes it stand out, because it seeps away and drinks up that oil, as opposed to a drain or a sieve, where it can sort of pull and then re-enter the food. And it may sound counterintuitive, but deep frying is one of the best ways to fry and control how much oil ends up in your actual dish. We're moments away. All right, the second piece is nice and golden and brown. Banana blossom's also great because it's not going to hurt you if it's undercooked. So if it's a little bit weird, that's absolutely fine. If a little part of it sticks out and becomes completely fried, that's also going to be totally fine. So do forgive yourself. Do just go in and know that whatever happens, it's going to be pretty good in the end. So I'm turning off my hot oil. That was at about 170 degrees the whole time, so a little bit colder than I would like, but it's absolutely fine. And ooh, look at that little weirdo. See, that's that beautiful irregularity. Ooh. That I was just talking about. So, we're pretty much done. Come join me at the other part of my kitchen again. Oh, can we see me? Are we? Okay, I think I accidentally paused it, but we're back. Oh my, hold please. I just deep fried that whole thing on camera and didn't screw up until back in its little holder. Oh, well, that's a great effort by me. I bloody turned the whole thing off. Okay, we're back. I'm going to clear my little workbench, and I have, because of my brilliant levels of organization, already prepared somewhere for us to put our little beer battered banana blossom. I've got this fish and chips shop style little package, and now for the grand unveiling. I'm going to put some Tabasco next to it. Normally I would serve this with some hot fried chips straight out of the fryer. I would also maybe put some mushy minted peas. I'm streaming in Britain right now, so I'm not going to dare to say a thing about mushy peas, because you guys have a much better handle on that than I do. So we want to have a lemon wedge or two. Get that prepared. And here we go, there we are. So, let's get a little bowl to put our tartar sauce in. And there you have it. So, we have two beautiful pieces of beer battered banana blossom from Vegan Junk Food by Zacchary Bird. I'm going to show you a little close up in a second. I'm just going to put a little lemon on here. As I mentioned earlier, it's very important to get the lemon in, and I didn't make all that tartar sauce for nothing. Oh, it's beautiful. And that tartar sauce is like baba ganoush and tzatziki and so many good things, where if you want to leave this sit overnight and make it the day before, you're gonna get a lot more flavor and more bang for your buck that way. So, we have two pieces of fried beer battered banana blossom and fresh tartar sauce to go with. So I've been Zacchary Bird. I can be found on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or just Google me at Zacchary. But the important information to take away is that my brand new book is available in bookstores worldwide from September 1st. So please pre-order it from your favorite local bookstore, or jump on into a store and grab it as soon as you can. I have worked for years to get this bad boy together, and I'm really proud of it. This is just one of dozens upon dozens of dishes, and I'm really looking forward to you enjoying it. So thank you for joining me for Beer Battered Banana Blossom. And I'm going to go and have a very unorthodox but delicious breakfast. Thanks for joining me.